Just came back from doing one of my civic duties here in Durham, North Carolina today, and all along those ideas, it is definitely election day here in Durham, and it's election day in other places like New York and I believe California, and at least parts of California, and definitely Virginia and other places as well. So here in Durham, we're trying to decide who our mayor will be. It might be our incumbent, or it might be a lady that has been involved in the arts for a number of years, a dancer, but whose dad was a former mayor. So that's something that was going on. And then we got city councils, ward races that are going on as well. So like I said, got up and decided to go vote on election day. It was early voting, and one of these years I may do the early voting and all along those lines. But there are a number of other things going on as well in the world of politics. That was just something here in the local political front and all in that space. But like I said, Mom Donnie is running there in New York. And of course, we got people talking about things like the ceasefire that is still holding up, I guess, in Israel and along those lines. And of course, the Ukrainian-Russian war continues to rage on as well. And I'm going to bring in Rick Rosner, see what he's got going on in his world, if he went and did any voting or had any fun today and all along those lines. But that's what I did earlier today.
We voted by mail a couple weeks ago. I just put up every time we vote. Not every time. I take you get a sticker said I voted. I put it on the dog. Yes. And then I take a picture of the dog and I throw it up on Twitter. So I just did my civic duty of putting the dog on Twitter.
That's good.
I looked for exit polls, but it's still too early. They used to release exit polls while people could still vote, but then they decided that was bad because it could change voter behavior. So they wait till the polls close.
Yeah, they wait until the polls close, and then you find out. I did get an invitation to a watch party. So even in local elections, there are watch parties, but I've got a couple of these shows. So I doubt that I'll make it, but who knows? I may change my mind and all along those lines. But a lot of things go on with the watch parties as people wait to see. And my dad does something similar. He's got, if you go to his Facebook, or even I think on the website of his artwork, Bamboo Turtle, I think it's bambooturtle.us or bambooturtle.com, you'll see that he has a little doll figure called Little Bamboo, which is a wooden turtle, and he'll stick something like "I voted" or it holding a plaque about having voted and stuff like that. And I've got the sticker because everybody gets those stickers and everything like that. So definitely, it's always good to have a little fun and maybe even a little whimsy in your life with some of this voting, because that's your way of having whimsy with the dog, and it's my way, or my dad's way of having whimsy with one of his kind of like tokens and all along those.
So if the Dems, I'll be disappointed if the Dems don't take every race. California Prop 50, New Jersey, Virginia governor. What's the what am I missing here?
California, Virginia, the Virginia governorship.
Virginia, New Jersey governor, and then there's one more that I'm
trying to think of which one that would be.
But anyway, they should win all four. I mean, Trump has been he's at the least. His popularity is at the lowest of this presidency, and it's even below his popularity the first time he was president at the 10 months in.
New Jersey. I don't think you said New Jersey. So New Jersey was.
Oh no, New York mayor. New York mayor. Of course, that's the big one. That's the one that's getting all the attention because Mamdani, he's Muslim. He calls himself a democratic socialist. He wants to make bus and subway fares free. It costs $2.90 to ride the New York bus or subway right now. Which is it's a really good deal, but it still adds up. If you take twice a day, so that's 28. That's $80 a week just for your transport, or $4,000 a year for transportation, which that's a month worth of New York rent.
Wow, that's a lot of New York rent. Speaking of things going on in the world, that since it is world politics, apparently there's a big news coming out of Jamaica where 90% of Jamaica's homes, that's a lot, have been destroyed because of Hurricane Melissa. And they were saying farmers in Vermont rallied to support Jamaican seasonal workers that were hard hit by Hurricane Melissa, but I can only imagine living in somewhere where 90% of the homes are in some state of disarray or damage. So I don't know, probably something
So,
with the
yeah,
fires.
it's really bad. They got hit with 185-mile-per-hour winds for several hours because that hurricane was moving slowly, so it scoured the whole frickin' island. And you need brick structures reinforced with rebar or cement structures to have any chance of surviving that level of wind. And in a tropical place, where you don't have to build, like I grew up in Colorado and we had cold winters. So a lot of people's houses were brick. So when we got hit with 100-mile-per-hour winds, the houses did okay. But in Jamaica, the coldest it gets, I don't know, gets into the 50s maybe. And so you don't build, so solidly to keep the warm in. And so, yeah, they're going to get their ass kicked by these crazy winds.
Yeah, definitely got kicked by those crazy winds, and it wasn't correctly structured and everything. And in another part of the world, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said Tuesday, which is today, that the police operation against a powerful criminal faction in Rio left 121 dead and that was a massacre. He said there was a massacre, and I think it's important to verify the conditions under which it occurred. So that's what he said in the Amazon city of Belém when he was being asked about this. So it looks like this was a police raid last week against the Red Command drug trafficking gang. Saw thousands of officers battling heavily armed men dressed in camouflage who dropped explosives on police from drones. So these drones are impacting a lot of different wars and everything like that. But they are going to do an investigation to see if there was a overuse of force and all along.
Let's go back to building for a sec, because we still, the California building code gets thicker every year. It's like this, and if you want to build a house, like the fires were at the beginning of the year, January, and very few, I think, houses have been started. To get through the California and LA housing, building requirements, it takes months and months, at least a year in a lot of cases. Even if you know what you're doing, because there's just a ton of rules you have to conform to. And yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah, it contributes to the housing shortage, but it means that you end up with a house that's safe from earthquakes, obviously not from fires, but from earthquakes. And, it's accessible if you ever want to sell your house to for handicapped people. A lot of stuff, it's a pain in the ass, but there's a lot of good stuff in it. But the deal is we still build houses the way we built houses for 300 years, with studs and posts. And, I'm expecting at some point in the next 10, 20 years, house construction to be disrupted by technology, which might be bad for construction workers, but might be good for the world we're moving into, where we're going to have more extreme weather. If you want to build in Florida, you better build for rising ocean levels, and your place too, North Carolina, California, all these places are affected by rising temperatures, which add more heat energy to the atmosphere and the ocean, which means that the storms are stronger. In the 10 years from now, you might not be able to fly at the height of summer because the air might be so overheated from climate change that you might have a really good chance of running into dangerous turbulence. We see that already, where planes drop 100, 200 feet in like 15 seconds. That's from overheated air.
You know, that's something they're talking about even speaking back in Brazil, but apparently they've got that climate conference going on because a lot of people are concerned about all these climate issues, even on the global side and everything like that. As a matter of fact, the Brazilian president was touting the COP of truth in Brazil as UNC is warning that emissions are even too high there as well. So definitely a lot of countries around the world are looking at that, and even Switzerland is optimistic about the COP30 climate meeting, and that was reported 2 days ago. So it looks like the nations of the world are trying to take this climate issue very seriously. You know, I've never asked this, and I
Well,
don't
so
know.
hold on. It's not the end of the world, but it is like chaos in the world. I just looked up estimates for climate related displacement. That is, you have to move from where you live because climate change is screwing up where you live. By 2050 vary, but a frequently cited figure is 1.2 billion people. That is 15% of all the people in the world might have to move because where they were living is getting beat up by changing climate conditions.
Yeah, speaking of that, we have an interesting question coming from the audience. So I'll bring it up. It's our good buddy, Dark Age 9117. I have no idea who he is, but I'll call him a buddy this time. He says, we are seeing a rise in military led governments across the world, mostly in Africa, but also in Asia. We also hear today about left wing versus right wing governments coming to power, but I find it a bit odd that no one is raising red flags to, hey, these military men are coming to power and they are more authorization and protected than left or right wing regimes. My question is there something going on that is causing more military dictatorships? And how come no one seems to be raising red flags that, hey, these are not good people. They are coming to power, and once in power, they are hard to topple. I recall during the Cold War, you saw them in abundance.
So I have several answers.
Okay.
One is social media and propaganda. Like, so people first started watching TV in large numbers in America, at least in the 1950s. And, in the 60s, TV came to the whole world. And by the end of the 60s, most houses in most countries had a TV. And that was 60 years ago. So we are resistant to TV now. We know that a lot of what we see on TV might be bullshit. In the 1930s, fascism came, 1920s, 1930s, fascism came to the world, and it was probably supported by radio. Radio was a new way of getting information, and people probably weren't resistant to it. They could be bullshitted over the radio. And now we have social media. The first smartphones came out in like 2008, the iPhone, I think, and now there are as many iPhone or smartphones in the world as there are people. And we're not super resistant to, endless messaging via, social media. And so it's easy to make people a little crazy, with internet-based and social media-based propaganda. That's thing one. Thing two is Putin is a propaganda factory. It doesn't cost much to spread a bunch of propaganda through the world. And Putin has a whole institute in St. Petersburg where they have dozens and dozens of people pumping out social media bullshit every day. And I saw an estimate a few years ago that it costs him like $10 million a year to flood the world with propaganda. And you see results. So that's those are two things: Putin plus propaganda. And then a third thing is, there's a chance that the whole world catching COVID messed up our brains. Because if you look at what happened after the Spanish flu of 1918 through 1920, where 1/3 of everybody, maybe as many as 1/2 of everybody in the world, caught this super bad flu, and it affected people's brains. It put some people to sleep forever, where it gave them encephalitis, I think, and that simulated it. It was like having Parkinson's. And there are all these studies showing that COVID fucks up your brain. And if Spanish flu made people dumber, angrier, and more susceptible to, like warlike actions, then we could see it, because in the 2 decades after that flu epidemic, we had depression, fascism, and then the biggest war in world history.
Well, and along those same lines, and I don't know the answer, but you are a great, smart person. You've definitely got all these claims of fame in terms of that intelligence and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, are we seeing more wars than we've seen before and everything? Because there's always been war in human history. I'm trying to think of a time that there hasn't been war, but even like now, the UN Secretary General is saying that Sudan's war is spiraling out of control. And of course, we now got stuff going on in Tanzania and all along those lines, where the curfew has been lifted in Dar es Salaam after they had
I'm gonna ask AI.
Ask AI. Because even Tanzania opposition is claiming security forces are secretly dumped in bodies after election ballots. So there is election ballots. And speaking of people that are propaganda machines, you were talking about Putin. And yes, I would agree that Putin is a propaganda master. But is he the only one? Because I would say that Trump is a propaganda master as well. And even doing this great propaganda of how many wars.
Trump has his own social. He has Truth Social, which is his own, social medium. So here's what comes up from the UN. Globally, the absolute number of war deaths has been declining since 1946. And yet conflict and violence are currently on the rise, with many conflicts today waged between non-state actors such as political militias, criminal, and international terrorist groups. So fewer wars between countries and more chaotic, freelance violence.
And it might be kind of the things that are going on in the sense of gang involvement, because not just in Central Africa and African nations, but even in Latin countries and other countries, including some in Europe. Because I remember before the Ukrainian war started, there was accusations of gangs being involved in some of the Eastern European countries, as well as whether those gangs were connected to Nazis or connected to other folks as well. By the way, we're still having comments with with our commentator, Dark Sage 9117 is saying, look at Central African nations you have seen, and I'm not saying they were democratic by any means, but you saw governments like in Gabon, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, and Mali, and others fall to the armed forces, which promise we will restore democracy, and then they go authoritarian, which is an interesting thing. But I would not just limit it to the African nations. I would say that is a common trait in a lot of places, even in European nations and all along those lines. And we might even see it if Ukrainian wins its peace, because we don't know which way the government will go, assuming that Zelensky doesn't run. And even under a Zelensky government, we don't know how the government will be framed.
I'm underinformed about these countries. I thought Nigeria was doing pretty well. I had no idea that they have a military junta in charge. They're the biggest African country by far. They're twice as big as the next biggest country. And they're a thriving country as far as I know. They've got a big entertainment industry. They do a lot of stuff with AI, because you need a ton of people to code stuff for. So I don't know.
I'll have to bring some people in that are bigger experts, and I do have some friends, including some that work at John Hope Franklin Center and other places, that are greater African experts, and I'll look up some stuff as well. By the way, I know we're talking about.
Hold on, I got more stuff from the UN. Okay. The UN says in 2016, more countries experienced violent conflict than at any point in the previous 30 years. At the same time, conflicts are becoming more fragmented. So, I mean, there's one more thing with social media and with our tech, is that in the 1950s, if you were a lunatic, there was a thing called the John Birch Society that believed that communists were hidden under every bush. And they had a lot of crazy and unpleasant beliefs. Right. But if you wanted to become part of the John Birch Society and communicate with people, it was all by mail. you sent a letter, they sent a letter back. People hardly ever even got on the phone with each other because you had to pay for long distance. If you wanted to call another John Birch lunatic in Idaho, that call in 1961 might cost you 30 cents a minute when the hourly wage was like $1.50. So it was slow. You couldn't get. Now, if you want to talk to, a lunatic about Nick Fuentes, you can exchange 150 text messages in an afternoon.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. By the way, in some other news, the Trump administration is warned in of pending airspace closures due to the shutdown, and they're saying that could lead to chaos. So that could be one of the things that's going on in the sense of the results and everything like that in terms of the shutdown. And we get some other news, and I don't know if this is shutdown related or if it's related to other things, because he has been involved in this. I know you mentioned it, and Jacoby has as well, but apparently Bitcoin prices fell below $100,000, and some people are asking why crypto is dropping on this particular day and all along those lines. And Trump is issuing a death wish warning to Americans ahead of gubernatorial elections. So I guess he's trying to make sure that certain candidates are winning that he wants to back and everything like that. So I don't know if you got any thoughts around this, and I'm actually trying to pull it up to see what this death wish is and everything like that.
I feel like people are starting to get a little nervous about AI, and crypto kind of holds hand. It's part of that. It's another emerging, tech thing, and I think that overall market nervousness, crypto's a little volatile since it's not based on anything except faith.
That makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's it. Nick
knows. By the way, they were saying Trump urged voters in New Jersey and Virginia to vote Republican for lower energy costs and tax cuts ahead of the gubernatorial elections. He claimed a Democratic victory would be a death wish, leading to higher energy prices and crime rates. So that's where the death wish was coming in. He was trying to paint it as if it would be the worst thing ever if the Democrats won these particular races and everything like that. So that's where he was going. So he posted that on his favorite platform, which you mentioned, which is Truth Social, and urged citizens not to vote for New Jersey and Virginia gubernatorial candidates Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger. He requested supporters to vote Republican for massive energy cost reductions, large-scale tax cuts, and basic common sense, promising that under his leadership, gasoline prices would fall to around $2 per gallon. Something like that. So I don't think that that's going to be the actual case, because he says that if the Democrats win, you'd be paying $4, $5, and $6 a gallon, and that energy costs and crime rates will be increasing. So it looks like he's trying to play to people's fear of inflation and everything like that. And I saw that was a fear in another part of the world that I know you've got family at and everything like that. At least I think they're still over there. But I saw that even in the UK, they're talking about this notion of that's something that they're saying on their political front, is that they are trying to figure out ways to lower inflation in that area. And they're saying that that's going to be the focus of their budget focus in the from the Bank of England. So they're trying to find ways to lower their key interest rates as well, and says their upcoming budget will focus on lowering inflation and paving the way for the Bank of England to lower its key interest rate. And that's what their Treasury Chief Rachel Reeves said on Tuesday. So it looks like they're having some of the same.
The UK is more stable right now than the US. They have fewer lunatics in charge. Now the UK has had not great government for decades and decades, but I don't know. I've been over there. Like, food is cheaper in the UK. Housing isn't, at least in the big cities. In London, the housing stock was all built in the Victorian times, and it's crappy and expensive. But I'd say overall, it might be easier to live in. I don't know. I don't know, but if I were looking to live on a limited budget, I think I'd and I had a choice, I'd choose the UK over the US right now. Though, I mean, the US is huge. Well, hold on. Let me correct myself. Let me correct myself. Freaking London expensive, but awesome.
Right.
If I wanted to live on a budget, I'd stay in the U.S. and I would move to Oklahoma.
There you go. Right. Yeah, you move to a place that is less expensive to live, and Tulsa is not very expensive place.
No, freaking, you can, if you're willing to move to the Oklahoma Panhandle, some little town, 1,200 people, you can buy a 3-bedroom house for probably $60,000.
Yeah, and there's places in Texas that are still very inexpensive.
I looked at Laredo, Texas, and I saw a fixer-upper for $9 a square foot. And it's a terrible house. Somebody painted all the walls red and the floor red, and you'd have to repaint the whole thing.
By the way, around the Atlanta area, some cases you can see some really bargains there too. I don't know if you've checked
Atlanta's got some good stuff. By the way, I got to check in with my cousin because he's running for office, trying to be a city council person in a area just outside of Atlanta. So he'll be running, I think it's Fayette, Georgia. So he's running for city council, and we'll see if he wins or doesn't win this evening and everything like that. By the way, apparently Elon Musk has made, and this just came in earlier to last minute endorsement. So he has endorsed Andrew Cuomo in New York, while Musk and rival candidate Zohran Mamdani with the nickname Mamdani. And he, of course, Mamdani is leading.
When did he do that? And when did he do that? Because the polls closed.
He did that 8 hours ago. So he did it like.
All right. Well, because
they had 1.4 million early voters. Boy, that's going to have an effect.
They said that he's expressed. Both Musk and Donald Trump are expressing worries about Mamdani's policy, labeling him a charismatic swindler and suggesting they would harm living standards in New York City. So that's where he's going. He's trying to say.
Wait a minute. Donald Trump is labeling someone else a swindler?
Yes.
Did I hear that straight?
You heard that straight.
And you said that with a straight face, Mark?
I try to say it with a straight face. I try to do these stories as straight face as possible.
I just go, wow, that's absolutely amazing.
So the Trump family has swindled people or stiffed people out of, I did the math one time, and I estimate $1.5 billion. I think they're the biggest deadbeat family in U.S. history. And that's even before all the crypto scams that are going to cost people who went in with them on, they bought all these Trump coins. That's going to cost investors billions of bucks.
What do you think, Nick? What do you think of some of the things that he's offering? Because Mamdani is saying that he wants minimum wage in New York City to be $30 per hour by 2030. Yeah. He's advocating free public transit, and he's saying that he will create a city-owned grocery stores as well as provide child care for everyone. So it looks like he's got some interesting ideas, but how much that will cost will be the interesting.
Well, LA wants $30 an hour, and I think we passed it by the Olympics in 2028 for hotel workers and other service workers. Wow. It's going to happen in the big cities. I don't know if he'll be able to do it, but it's happening. Yeah. I don't know if he'll be able to do free childcare. That sounds super expensive. But
I don't know how he's going to accomplish all that stuff, Mark.
And New York, like the mayors of New York are not in charge of New York. I mean, they can change some policies, but money runs New York.
Yeah,
money
they got to respond to the council.
People are afraid of Mamdani, and we'll see if they stick around or not. By the way, we have a fan. Me and Rick have been answering him. He hasn't come back with any other questions.
Well, I've got one more thing about. So crypto dropped today. I think AI, the stock market dropped some today. I think it might have been AI related, but the Motley Fool, which is a stock picking, Motley Fool went to ChatGPT, which is an AI, and said, "Hey, when is the bubble gonna pop and crash? And AI is gonna crash the markets?" And ChatGPT was very reluctant to answer, so they asked AI itself. But AI finally answered a plausible window is within the next 1 to 2 years, meaning sometime in 26 or 27, possibly late 2025. Well, it's too late for that, but depending on triggers. But this is not a guarantee. So mentioned a moderate to high chance of a meaningful correction of 30 to 50% in that time frame. Well, I don't think 50%. That's crazy. I'm not sure. We've done 50% maybe twice in the past century, the Great Depression and then the Great Recession. That is unlikely. But yeah,
it was down 37% in the Great Recession. So it wasn't quite that, but still a 37% hit on your stock portfolio and it hit everybody's is pretty damaging. In other words, the retirement plans were down, all the financial assets were down. So if you see that happening again, which I think is going to happen between now and 2033, I don't see how it cannot happen.
Right. So you should have some, if you've got a bunch of assets, some of them should be in cash, in money markets, and so when it does crash, then you can swoop in, and
buy the low hanging fruit. The only problem is you just don't know when this is going to take place. I think you're going to see some really bad unemployment numbers the fourth quarter coming up. Probably the November's not going to look good. December's going to be bad. You're going to have a bad fourth quarter on unemployment. I think this is going to be new, and watch, the press is going to get riled about it. But you're going to see unemployment tick probably over 5%, maybe 6 or even 7%.
Are we? Yeah, but are we going to get those numbers if the government stays shut down? They're the ones who supply the numbers.
Yeah, they supply those numbers and everything like that. Hey, Nick and Rick, and even Joey who joined us, he's out there driving in this evening kind of, since we're in daylight saving times, it's definitely evening and all along those lines and in that space. But I just wondered, are we going to see lower Christmas buys this year than we saw last year and in the years past? And what is your own reflections on both Thanksgiving, which is later on this month in about 3 weeks, and Christmas, because it is about to be holiday shopping season. People are starting to go to the stores to shop and everything. But are we going to see lower holiday shopping, or what is people's predictions?
So AI says 10% decrease.
Yeah.
Decrease.
Wow. Just to point out, this kind of coincides with what you were just talking about. Yes, you're going to see a drop, especially if you're seeing stocks starting to tumble, unemployment going higher. If nobody has a job, why are they going out and buying stuff for Christmas? That's not happening. So yeah, there's going to be a huge drop off. It is going to be bad. And this goes back to, I guess, what we talked about earlier, how people were reminiscing about Trump's first term. He right now owns the biggest stock drops in with no pandemic or anything to affect it. That's just who he is.
Yeah.
So I got a question, somewhat serious, somewhat not, because of the way I'm gonna phrase it and everything. Is Trump the ultimate Grinch? Because it seems like Trump is now new Grinch and everything. So is Trump going back to some of the Christmas things that we'll see later on in terms of
he's pretty gleefully, vindictive, but we know that. So anyway, if you want to buy a bunch of stuff for people for Christmas, now's the time to start looking on eBay for bargains. Start hitting Goodwill and look at that. I know that China will eventually just destroy us by selling us cheap crap, but really look at the cheap crap you can get from China via Shine, Temu, Alibaba, AliExpress. I'm constantly surprised at how good the cheap crap from China looks.
I got you one even better though, Rick. And I hate to say it this way because this is just the reality of the situation that we're going to have to deal with over the next few months, actually over the next few years, because of the way the economy is being run. To buy cheap stuff, I hate to say it, but there are going to be a lot of store closings. So honestly, you're going to have to look for those big sales on those store closings. And on top of that, this could be the year where a lot of people are going to make items for other people. So you're going to have to look at doing that.
And
there's going to be a lot of crafting going on for sure.
So I looked it up for the man in your life or for the women-identified women in your life. You can get an OnlyFans gift card.
Okay, I'm getting a report from Deloitte that says that they believe overall holiday growth sales will be up 2.9 to 3.4%,
Okay.
but not as good as the 4.2 that took place in 2024. So they're actually predicting an
So we're
increase
getting
of 3 to
contradictory
3.5.
information because Rick said 10% drop. You're saying 3% rise.
Well, no,
No,
AI
I'm not saying anything. I'm
AI
saying what
says
Deloitte
10% down.
is saying. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it goes further that a growth of 9% would be good enough to reach 310 billion. But we'll see about that. Anyway, Deloitte says growth of 3 to 3.5 for what it's worth.
But also look, if you also look at service, at doing favors for people as gifts, like you offer people one free drive to the airport, or you offer to this is all out of the LA Times. They had a gift guide for Christmas, and they had a whole section on what you can do for people. Offer to babysit their pets, offer to babysit their kids.
But think about how we have changed as a nation in just less than 10 months, really. But well, in 10 months, really. But we're now doing Christmas gifts as services. We're not doing Christmas gifts. We're doing Christmas services because we cannot afford the gifts.
Yeah,
that is a very, very bad indictment on how the economy is, how actually our society is, because I mean it's just getting bad right now.
So, but the evangelicals would argue that is the essence of a Christian nation. But it's not the material things you have; it's what you do for other people, and that the government shouldn't be in the providing for people business. That we should provide for each other. Of course, a lot of this is complete bullshit because one.
I mean, look at Joel Osteen. He's a big time Christian. That dude got planes. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Speaking of planes and the evangelicals and everything like that, how easy is it going to be for folks to get to their Christmas travels? Because as we know, a lot of people are scattered. I mean, there are certain folks that live near their family members. Like, I'm fortunate that my dad lives in the same town that I live in, and my mom only lives about an hour away. But that's me being, and Malik, my brother, is in the same town with my nephews. But that's me being very fortunate and having a lot of family members that are nearby. But say I wanted to go to visit my cousin in Atlanta. Do I want to catch a plane down to Atlanta with what's going on with the shutdown and the air traffic controllers and all along those lines? And even get to Charlotte, it can be hard. So what's going to happen in terms of people actually, because holiday travel is a major part of our.
Yeah, so Thanksgiving is in 23 days. This is the 35th day of the shutdown. So I don't know, during COVID, people had Zooms giving. We might have to have Thanksgiving over Zoom.
Well, with all the naysayers here, I have some really sad news for you.
Okay.
The S&P 500 gained 19.6% over the past 12 years.
Yeah, so the deal is if you're always freaking out,
what am I supposed to say? You can be Debbie Downers, but this.
Hold on, wait. You said that.
I have to go because I got another meeting to go to. But anyway,
you have to go because
sorry,
you're not wrong. You're not
let
wrong.
me point out
19.6%.
Let me point out something though. As a realist, that S&P has no effect on the bread prices that I cannot afford right now. It has no effect on the egg prices that I cannot afford. So talking about the S&P does nothing because the majority of the people in this country aren't really into the stock market.
That's true, but let's talk about the people who can afford to be into stocks. If you're constantly freaking out that there's going to be a market crash and you keep your money in the money market, which is paying 4% right now, then you've lost, versus the S&P, you've lost more than 15% in the past year in gains you could have had, but you gave up because you're waiting for the apocalypse.
And that's the sad part, is that because of that, what Trump did with his Gatsby dinner illustrates what is actually happening in our nation. And because there's going to be a lot of outrage, especially that's about to start happening, because you can't afford presents for your kids and that makes you upset, makes you feel like a failure, then it is statistically proven high areas of poverty have a lot more crime. So when we're going to start pushing people to the brink of starvation, because Trump just recently today said that he's going to hold on to the SNAP benefits until the government opens now, even though the court ordered him to pay, and now he's saying that he doesn't want to, even after he said he was going to pay. It's just ridiculous what he's doing. But now you got people that are going to be pushed to starvation. They're going to want to survive. They're going to want their kids to survive. So now you're going to put people into a position where our society is becoming a powder keg based on what Trump is doing. And that right there is scary because, again, he had this giant party spending all this money. He's bragging about the amount of money he spent on changing a bathroom, but can't pay for SNAP benefits. And you're cutting money and you're keeping the government closed because you don't want to actually negotiate, because you're saying that that's a bad thing, even though you need to negotiate. It's just right now we have a lot of social unrest, and it's just going to get worse as more people become impoverished.
All right, so I have one very specific shopping tip, and then I got to go.
Okay.
So Lego building sets are great. They're great for families because it's something that parents can do with their kids. It teaches kids how to learn spatial reasoning, to follow complicated directions, and everybody can do it together. The only trouble is a good Lego building kit can run $100 or more. So go on Temu and look up. They've got knockoff sets called Legoshi, and you can get great kits for $8 for you can build the great buildings of the world. Here's a kit that lets you build like a dozen, $4. The crazy cheap but really good looking knockoff Lego sets, $6.
A lot of people, in addition to going to Temu and those Asian companies, will also be heading to the thrift stores, because I know here we've got one that's called, I think it's Everything But Granny's Panties and everything like that. So they'll be going to a lot of these thrift stores and a lot of antique stores and other things that are discount stores, even some cheaper consignment stores, and all along those lines. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of people doing that and heading to things to find some cheaper ways to get their things in that space. What I'm curious about, and I don't know if you got time to answer or if Jacoby does, are we going to see a bump in crime? Because a lot of times when people are desperate, that is when they turn to crime and turn to robbing if they can't necessarily buy it and everything. So we're going to see a rise in crime during the holidays.
I assume that around the holidays that scams get a little scammier, but I mean the face of crime has changed over the past 30 years because people do more stuff online. So that's where people are scammed. So
just to point out, like I said, statistically, impoverished areas usually have a higher crime rate due to that survival kicking in. And it's not saying that poor people commit more crimes. It's just that in those areas, crime happens, and it is a lot, or the context around the crime is different than just what happens in the white collar areas. So yes, there's definitely going to be a bump in crime. And honestly, there's going to be a bump. In Washington, how they said, there were 6 people that were shot over the weekend, wasn't it? And that supposedly Trump cleansed and made it. It's not, what he did was just waste money. So yes, there's going to be a bump in crime because there's a lot of social unrest. And because there's a lot of social unrest, then you also have poverty kicking in. Yeah, there's going to be a bump in crime.
So in LA has more than 70,000 homeless people. And most of them, I'm sure, are decent people, maybe crazy, but there is a significant percentage of them who engage in petty crime. and that's a constant reservoir. JD, the director of Naked at Night, had he does a bunch of music gigs, and he had his speakers stolen out of his car last week, and it's his neighborhood, which is just 2 miles north of where I live, has a ton of homeless people. And they have the video of the thieves on a door cam, and it was a couple guys, white guys, likely homeless, on bicycles. And
you're definitely seeing more of that going on. And by the way, I know you got to go. Speaking of that, and just really quickly, we're going to wrap up probably around the top of the hour, and it might be a shorter version and everything. But we're also seeing our vice president put his foot in his mouth and everything like that. And I'm trying to get somebody involved in this particular conversation on the network and on the show. But apparently he's not going to be happy until his wife converts from Hinduism and everything like that.
Yeah,
and there are a number of people, including Hindus,
I'm happy for him to keep putting his foot in his mouth, because we don't need another one of these MAGA Republicans being president, getting elected in 2028. All right, I will see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow morning. And like I said, hopefully we'll see him coming in and everything like that. But I'm going to get out of here as well. So we're going to have a couple of other shows going on, but we'll wrap up World Politics, and we'll be back on tomorrow with World Edition. And we've got other shows on this particular evening. I know that at 7:00, we've got a show of Plan to Prosper with Sharon Campbell. That's a rerun episode, but that'll be coming up at 7. And at 6:00, we've got the St. Sia Academy and the Mama Noni show talking about history and all along those lines. And at 8:00, we've got Urban Sentinel, which has been featuring a number of authors. But right now, let's get on out of here, and we'll have those shows coming. And also this evening, matter of fact, I think that's where Nick went to. We've got the Wall Street Hackers. The Wall Street Hackers coming your way as well. But right now, let's get on out of here.